I sat in my office chair, fingers brushing over the braille of an old law book. The rhythmic hum of the city outside offered a momentary solace as I prepared for a case. The phone, not my office line, but my personal, private phone, buzzed on the desk. Unnerving, but not uncommon. I answered calmly. Matt Murdock. Before I could say more, a voice broke through, trembling and tearful. A woman, her words choked by panic.
Please, you have to help me. My son, he's missing. It's been a month.
Ma'am, slow down. I urged, my voice steady. Take a breath and tell me everything. She did barely. Between shuddering inhales, she explained that she lived near Crystal Lake, a town barely on the map, and that local authorities had given up on her missing child. Something about her desperation struck a nerve. I asked her how she'd gotten my personal number, but before she could answer, the line went dead. I tried calling back. Nothing. Just static. It didn't sit right with me, none of it. A mother desperate enough to track me down on a private line? A police force that wouldn't help? My instincts churned. I could have ignored it. I could have let it go. But I didn't. I packed my bag, adding my suit and billy clubs. Maybe I wouldn't need them. But something deep inside whispered otherwise. By nightfall, I had hired a car and driver to take me north. The drive was quiet. Too quiet. As the miles rolled by, the hum of the city gave way to eerie silence, broken only by the crunch of gravel under tires. When we arrived in the town, something was wrong. It was too still. The kind of quiet that prickled the back of your neck, like the world was holding its breath. I checked into the hotel. The receptionist greeted me with a strained voice, like he was trying to hide his nerves.
Room 12.
He mumbled, handing me a key. His hand trembled as he passed it over. I thanked him, but he lingered. Just as he turned to leave, he hesitated. I heard his heartbeat quicken, the sound betraying his fear. Is there something you want to tell me? I asked. No. He stammered, retreating.
Good day, sir.
I settled into the room, the weight of the town's unease pressing against me. I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on me. After a while, I left the hotel to gather information. The streets were deserted, the air thick with dread. Eventually, I stopped an old man shuffling along the cracked sidewalk. Excuse me, I began. I'm looking for a woman named. I gave her name. The old man froze, his breath catching.
She lives out by Crystal Lake.
He said finally, his voice low.
She'll be back Friday. Works out of town, you see.
I thanked him and moved on, but his words stuck to me like cobwebs. Something about this place wasn't natural. Even without my heightened senses, I could feel it. Back at the hotel, I donned the suit beneath my clothes. Something told me I'd need Daredevil more than Matt Murdock before the night was through. Then I left, following the directions the old man had given me. The forest loomed ahead, shadows swallowing the trail. The scent of damp earth filled the air. I focused on the sounds around me, every twig snap and rustle amplified in my ears. A faint noise caught my attention. Footsteps. Someone was following me. I slipped into the underbrush, my breathing steady, ears trained on the intruder. When the sound grew close, I moved. In an instant, I had him pinned. Why are you following me? I growled. The man cried out, his voice familiar. The receptionist.
It's not what you think.
He stammered. His heartbeat was erratic, wild with fear. Then tell me what it is. I demanded, shaking him slightly. He spilled everything in a panicked rush. The woman's call? A lie. The missing son? Fiction. The town? Abandoned long ago. Kingpin's handprints were all over this. He'd orchestrated everything to lure me here. But why? What's the endgame? I pressed. The receptionist hesitated, then broke.
Kingpin discovered something out here. A monster. Jason Voorhees.
The name sent a chill through me. Jason Voorhees. A legend, a ghost story. But the terror in this man's voice told a different story.
Kingpin wants you dead.
The man continued.
He's counting on Jason to finish you.
I tightened my grip. Why help him?
I didn't have a choice.
He whimpered.
Please, don't kill me.
I released him with a shove, knocking him unconscious with a swift punch. After dragging his body into the bushes, I stood still, listening. The forest seemed alive with whispers and unseen eyes. Turning back wasn't an option. If Jason Voorhees was real, if Kingpin had set this trap, then I had to see it through. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I ignored it. I walked deeper into the forest, my senses straining with every step. The air grew colder, heavier, and somewhere ahead, I felt it, a presence, waiting. Jason Voorhees. I kept moving, the weight of the night pressing against me. My fists clenched and ready. Whatever waited for me beyond the trees, I'd face it. Because I'm Daredevil. And I don't back down. The forest's oppressive darkness clung to me like a shroud. The faint rustling of leaves and the creak of distant branches painting a foreboding symphony. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with a calculated urgency. Every step I took toward Jason Voorhees' house brought me closer to answers, but also closer to the unknown. How do you destroy something that can't be killed? That thought gnawed at me as I moved through the shadows, my senses reaching out to the woods around me. Jason was out there somewhere. I could feel him like a storm brewing on the horizon. The air itself felt heavy, weighted with the malevolence of a predator that had claimed these woods as his domain. I crouched low beneath an ancient tree, the bark rough against my back as I strained to listen. But the forest was unnaturally still, as if holding its breath. Even the animals seemed to know better than to stir. And then I heard it, the slow, deliberate crunch of heavy boots against brittle leaves. My pulse quickened as I adjusted my weapons, the familiar weight of my billy clubs grounding me. Kingpin had sent me here knowing I couldn't resist the call to help. He also knew Jason wasn't just a man. No, this wasn't just a fight. It was a trap, and I'd walked right into it. The footsteps grew louder, closer. My plan was simple. Strike fast, keep him off balance, and find his weakness. If he had won, I followed the sound, weaving silently between the trees. Soon, I heard the faint creak of wooden steps. Jason's house. My breath hitched as I crouched behind a bush, listening as he moved inside. I needed to draw him out. With a quick flick of my wrist, I hurled a rock against the metal frame of an old, rusted truck nearby. The clang echoed through the forest like a gunshot. Jason emerged almost immediately, his hulking frame illuminated by the pale moonlight. His machete gleamed, a wicked, unholy thing. He moved slowly, methodically, scanning the woods for the source of the sound. He was hunting, and I was his prey. From my perch in a nearby tree, I watched as he stepped into the clearing. He didn't see me. Not yet. I waited for the perfect moment, muscles coiled like a spring. But just as I prepared to leap, A deafening crack shattered the silence. Pain exploded in my leg as I fell from the tree, landing hard on the forest floor. The sharp sting told me what it was: a bullet. Kingpin had sent a sniper. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to stand, my foot throbbing with each step. I tried to focus, tried to reach out with my senses, but the pain was a distraction. Jason was gone. He'd melted into the shadows as if he'd never been there. I leaned against a tree, every nerve in my body screaming as I tried to center myself. The sniper was out there, too, watching, waiting. This wasn't just a trap. It was a game, and I was the pawn. I forced myself to move, limping through the trees as quietly as I could. If Jason was still nearby, I couldn't let him catch me off guard. My foot was slowing me down, though, and every step felt like a countdown to disaster. I needed a plan. That's when I felt him. Jason's presence was like a shadow across my mind, dark and suffocating. He was close. Too close. I turned just in time to dodge a massive swing of his machete, the blade slicing through the air where my head had been a second earlier. He was relentless, his movements slow but deliberate. Each swing carried the weight of a freight train. I countered, driving my billy clubs into his ribs with all the strength I could muster. I didn't even flinch. I spun around, aiming for his legs, but it was like hitting a steel beam. He grabbed me by the collar and threw me like a rag doll. I crashed into a tree, the impact knocking the wind out of me. My head was spinning, my body screaming in protest. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Jason was on me in an instant, his machete slicing downward. I rolled to the side, the blade embedding itself deep into the ground. Using the opening, I struck him across the face with my billy club, the force sending him staggering back a step. It wasn't enough. He came at me again, his machete now free, and I barely had time to block. The force of his blows reverberated through my arms, each strike pushing me closer to the edge. Then another shot rang out. This one missed, but it was close enough to remind me I wasn't alone. Kingpin's man was still out there, waiting for the perfect moment to take me down. Jason, undeterred, kept coming. I was outmatched, outgunned, and out of options. I needed to retreat, to regroup. But Jason wasn't going to let me go. He swung again, and I barely managed to dodge, the blade slicing through my jacket. I stumbled backward, my injured foot giving out beneath me. Jason loomed over me, his machete raised high. This was it. This was the moment Kingpin had been waiting for. But I wasn't done yet. Summoning every ounce of strength I had left, I hurled one of my billy clubs at Jason's face. It struck true, hitting him square in the eye. He roared in pain, giving me just enough time to roll out of the way and get back to my feet. I ran, my injured foot screaming with every step. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away. The forest was a blur of shadows and shapes, each one more menacing than the last. I could hear Jason behind me, his heavy footsteps closing the distance. The sniper was out there too, his scope trained on me. I was running out of time, running out of options. And then I tripped. My foot caught on a root, sending me sprawling to the ground. I tried to get up, but my body wouldn't listen. I was done. Spent. Jason's footsteps grew louder, each one a death knell. I turned onto my back, staring up at the dark canopy of trees as his hulking silhouette came into view. This was it. This was how it ended. Not with a victory, but with a fight I could never win. Jason's machete gleamed in the moonlight as he raised it high. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end. And then everything went silent.